say that the managers at the state body are responsible for purchases, and the Kenya Medical Supply Authority, that's KEMSA, violated procurement rules leading to loss of public money. So there's an article right there in case you'd like to see what that is all about. Do get your, log on to BBC and see what that is on the headlines. Let's take a look at Al Jazeera, which I suspect is going to be highlighting what's happening in America. There you have it. Trump tested for COVID-19 after close aide was diagnosed with virus. This is Hope Hicks, and she was traveling with Donald Trump for the presidential debate that they had recently, and also there was another trip that she had done with the president, and of course being close to the president, she has now got or shown symptoms of COVID-19, and as a result they certainly are going to have the president checked just to ensure that he is not also showing any symptoms of that. Of course, we do know one of the controversies in the US is how President Donald Trump has handled the whole thing. If you even look at the presidential debate, after they finished their debate, you have Joe Biden's wife coming on stage and also Melania Trump coming on stage. Melania Trump does not come with a mask. Joe Biden's wife comes with a mask. So that already tells you how they're handling and viewing COVID-19, the two leaders. Let's look at CNN as we wind up with this and go to local newspapers. Trump to begin quarantine process after aide tested positive. And this, of course, is Hope Hicks, who's tested positive, and she is a close aide to the president, has traveled with the president in the recent past. And if she is positive, then they definitely would want to have the president checked. But there's also another story. There are secretly recorded tapes show Melania Trump frustration at criticism for family separation policy and her bashing of Christmas decoration. Matters politics and family issues in the Trump palace, so to speak. So there you go. That's what we have on the international plane. Let's now look at what we have on our dailies. But before that, allow me to introduce the guests that we have this morning. And I'll start with the lady. We are joined by Gloria Oroba, who's a youth policy advisor. Thank you for joining us. We also have Dr. Mark Odingo, who's a political consultant, and Mark Bichachi, who's a political strategist. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, to review the dailies this morning, but also later on to look at what has been the highlight for this particular week. So we go straight into it, and we start off with the Standard, where the headline is Uhuru in Paris as Ruto occupies Jubilee House. And allow me to just use the quote that the deputy president uses and get your take on this, the three of you. These are interesting times, indeed. This is according to the deputy president, that working from Jubilee headquarters, where I am the duly elected deputy party leader, is considered news. Let me start with you, Gloria. Ladies first. Should it be news that the deputy president is actually using, the party headquarters for a meeting?
I think it's news because there is a clear understanding on the position that they have forced him, the corner that they have pushed him. And I think he has, the deputy president has constantly tried to, be the bigger person, not be dramatic. He has tried to showcase that he can thrive even with those difficult circumstances that he has been put into. And so a simple act as him going to the party office becomes news, because what they were expecting is that he would stay away, he would shy off, and he would literally just be humble, the way they keep saying, be humble. Be humble,
but the reason why we might suggest that it is news is because, one, he has not been very frequent there, except recently when we had the Msambweni by-election, and he went there to, after a short discussion with the SecGen, he came out, but he has not been there. So it's peculiar that he is there now while the president is away.
Even your statement doesn't make sense, because you said he hasn't been there until recently. He was there during when the party took up the position of not fielding candidates of the Msambweni by-election. He was there, but they didn't report of his physical presence at the office. What they reported is that he was there trying to push for...
No, but of course, Gloria, I mean, the pictures we saw and even the fact that he was there with the SecGen, we don't need to report and say that he was there. We can already see that. And my point here being that he has...
Michael, let me ask you one question. So if there was an agenda that was very controversial that he was there for yesterday, then it would not be seen as a coup. The agenda would have been reported. Because that's what you're trying to tell me, that when he went there for them Sambweni, because there was an agenda that was...
No, what I'm bringing forth, Gloria, and I'll bring in Bichachi here maybe to hear his comments, but what I'm bringing forth is for the last God knows how long, he's been deputy president now for what, 7 years? He has hardly worked from there. He's been dishing wheelbarrows and everything else from his home, but now suddenly he's there in the office. And the peculiar thing here is the president is not around. Mark Bichachi, your thoughts on this? Should this be news, or are we overblowing something that is...
You haven't allowed me. I was speaking my point and then you...
All right. I'll give you a chance. Go ahead and finish, Gloria.
My point was,
but make it brief.
The fact that it is making news that someone is going to their own office, to an office where they belong as a worker, because he is a member of that party and he is actually the deputy party leader. The fact that that is making news, that goes to show you how scared, how completely terrified everybody is of the presence of the deputy president in the party or in any field or anywhere. That is what I was going to say. Because I don't think that it should make news that he was physically at the party offices, but what should make news is what was the agenda. So just like last time he was fielding a candidate for the Msambweni by-election, what made news was the agenda of what he was doing at the party office instead of his physical presence at a party office.
At the party office. All right, I get you. I get your point. Mark Bichachi, should this be news? Are we overblowing this?
Well, first I'd like to state that if I'm ever arrested, kidnapped, or anything happens to me, do not call the police. Call Gloria to defend me. She will defend me no matter what. My goodness.
Although she's not a lawyer. The last time I checked.
I'm not a lawyer, no.
No, but they'll call you. I'm putting you as my emergency contact now. But I'd like to give the viewers a simple analogy. The reason why Deputy President William Ruto went to Jubilee headquarters is the reason why he was complaining. It's the fact that he wanted to make news, and the message he's sending is that he's still a force to be reckoned with within the rank and file of the party. This he must have done simply because, if you remember last week, he went there with...
Sorry, Mark, I'll have to interrupt you. There seems to be a problem with your sound. I'm not sure if you're using a microphone. There's a rubbing sound that maybe needs to be sorted out. So maybe let me hear from Makodingo while we sort that out and come back to you. My apologies for that. Makodingo, your thoughts on this as to whether this really should be news, or is this, like the deputy president who says we're living in interesting times when the legitimate deputy president and deputy party leader, when he appears in the office, it becomes news?
Thank you very much, Michael. First, William Ruto is the deputy party leader of Jubilee, so of course he has a right to go there. However, from what I understand, when he literally stormed Jubilee headquarters, he went straight to the chairman's office and summoned the rest of the workers to come to him and brief him. He hasn't been there for a while, and he's been having, everybody knows that he's been having squabbles with the deputy, the vice chairman of the party, and the SG and his allies have called them names, several times. But for me, I think the reason it makes news is not that he went there. The reason it makes news is what his lieutenants have been saying. You've seen Senate leaders, National Assembly leaders, all clamoring for dissolution of parliament so that people can go back to elections. And the loudest proponents of this have been DP's allies. So for me, I'm looking at it in terms of, he hasn't said it himself, but if his allies are saying we want to go back to elections, then of course the next thing would be, how do we go to those elections? Under what party, with what candidacy, with what party ticket? And for me, I look at it as him going to Jubilee to prepare, or even to put pressure on the president, actually, to dissolve parliament as Maraga recommended. So this is just being aggressive. I mean, it's just being a politician, aggressive, telling the president we are ready, the party is ready for elections. Anytime that you wish to dissolve parliament.
We are ready.
And yeah, and for me, I think that is the reason it makes news. So if I was to craft a headline out of this, I would say, Deputy President ready for elections when parliament is dissolved. Because that's aggressively is what is trying.
Okay, and so far, you know, the deputy president at some point was playing very quiet and, you know, sort of, everybody would say whatever they had to say, but he wasn't doing much or saying much. But there seems to be a change in his tact. Do you agree that he's becoming a bit more aggressive now and a bit more, let's say, it's like he doesn't, the die is already cast?
I actually think the only thing he's not doing is to resign. But, I mean, we saw the National COVID conference. This was a whole of government conference. Everyone was there. A meeting specifically called by the president. And he conspicuously misses it when he's distributing wheelbarrows in some nondescript place. So I think it's decided, the deputy president has decided that he will not resign, but he will also not take part in conversations around national leadership at any level other than during campaign.
All right, we'll come back to that as we review the week and look at the COVID conference. But let me hear from Mark Bichachi. He was in the middle of giving us an analogy of what is happening. Sorry about that, Mark. I think our sound is now good.
Yeah, the analogy I'd like to give and why this thing makes sense is if your wife leaves home and is always doing her own agendas, and then she suddenly visits your house in the full glare of cameras, I can bet you, your children will talk about it, your neighbors will talk about it, and the reason why this is news is there's a very loud and messy divorce happening within Jubilee, where we've got a deputy president who is busy campaigning and trying to distance himself from a government in which he sits, positioning himself as opposition to himself, basically. And that's why it made news, because there is a very loud and messy divorce. And just like if your mother and father are fighting, the moment you see your mother or father enter the bedroom again, then you have to discuss it, because it has significance, and that is why it is news.
All right, and what do you foresee happening in the near future, Mark, as a political strategist, in terms of Uhuru and the deputy president? They certainly are not reading from one script. In fact, like Mark Odingo says, the only thing that we have not seen the deputy president do is pen that resignation.
Well, Makodingo is quite right, but the Rubicon point is going to be BBI. Number one, whether the deputy president will support the BBI or he will pull a runner. If he does pull a runner, that will spell the definite point from which this relationship was permanently severed, at least on paper. If he does support the BBI, then the other Rubicon point will be what the president talked about yesterday, whether he will support him or not. And he said that will be known in 2022. So those are the 2 points Kenyans have to watch
but isn't it already somewhat clear, Bichachi, on the deputy president regarding the Building Bridges initiative? One from him and his lieutenants.
Well, you remember that they pulled an about turn when BBI 1 was released. They began singing their praises even before the conference started. So again, this is about what the contents of the BBI will be about. But also remember that Ruto is hell-bent on showing off a victim mentality, which you can see Gloria is convinced about, that he's trying to be the bigger man. So again, what you can also expect is more of that, more trying to show that he's a victim that has been sidelined from government and then blaming government for what is going wrong. So that's the strategy.
Allow me to clarify.
To do so.
Okay.
Allow me to clarify, just 30 seconds. I think there's a very high expectation that the deputy president should practice political obscurity. But at what expense? You know, at what expense do you pick a side and decide to be loyal to that side when you can see very clearly that Kenyans are suffering from the decisions that are being taken up by that government? So that political obscurity that Kenyans are expecting from the deputy president, he has been exercising it until very recently, actually until the pandemic kicked in. Because I think the understanding is that when the pandemic came, you know, it's no longer a comfortable place to be silent and try to support COVID billionaires and try to support all sorts of inhumane decisions and actions that are being taken up by the government that you are working for.
That being said, Gloria, the question that many are asking, he's been deputy president for 7 years. Why has he suddenly become concerned about Kenyans? What did he do in the 7 years?
Do you know, one of the things, every time they bring that up, I keep thinking about Kibaki. Kibaki was the vice president for how many years? And he's not remembered for his work as being the vice president for, I think it's 10 years. He's not remembered for his work, and yet he's remembered for being one of the best presidents that this country has had. So every time I hear someone saying, you know, this person has been vice president or deputy president for this long, there has to be an understanding that the autonomy that you have as the deputy president is completely different from the autonomy that you have as the president. Because as the president, and you have seen this in this government, you can take up certain decisions, and those decisions that you take have an immediate impact on the economy or on our social systems. So for me, I wouldn't say that we'll hold the deputy president. You've been there for 7 years, what have you done? He's been there for 7 years under the president. And under that president who we have seen taking up certain decisions that have been very negative towards our economy and have been very, the impact on the economy has not really, and what can you do? That is, so on one hand, you expect political obscurity, you expect a servant leader to the president, and the other hand, you expect him to go against the decisions that have been taken by the president.
All right, let me just hear from Makodingo, your thoughts on this, that the deputy president would probably do much more, according to Gloria's narrative, if he was president, that he has not been able to do that when he is deputy president. One might feel that that would be, you know, a little bit stretching it a little bit. Makodingo, do you agree?
You know, we've had two different terms for the Jubilee administration. In the first term, there was almost a co-presidency. I think it was accepted that there was a co-presidency between, you know, His Excellency the President and the Deputy President. And he did a lot. He did quite a bit. In fact, I think if you asked a lot of people in this country and a lot of people in government, they'll tell you that the Deputy President was the person you went to if you wanted something done. So he really can't run away from the performance in the first term. In the second term, I don't know. I mean, he decided to campaign from day one, which I think is quite unfortunate because we elected him to actually work. But the vice presidency of the 80s or even of the 90s is not the same as the deputy presidency in this new constitution. Because back then, I mean, the president could hire and fire you on the roadside. And he actually did. He did to Saitoti once, hired him on the roadside. And the vice president really, in terms of the presidency, had no role. And we all know this, that for a very long time, other than for a short period that Saitoti wasn't really substantially a minister somewhere, the vice president was always Minister for Home Affairs. So he actually had work as a minister. In this administration and in this constitution, the presidency is almost a co-presidency. So you expect that the deputy president, given that they campaign on the same platform, and they sell these things together, and we all know the deputy president is probably the greatest salesman I've seen in this country, politically. They sold us this dream together, and they sold us this manifesto together, and they wrote quite a significant portion of it. So he cannot run away from the implementation of that manifesto.
Of that, all right. Makodingo, allow me to interrupt you and maybe move to another story, because we'll come back to the deputy president when we're reviewing the week in regards to the COVID conference that took place. But let's look at a different article here on page 3. We have Uhuru Inc.'s deal in visit to France. And Mark Bichachi, maybe just to highlight what importance this kind of projects have, because I even saw memes that are going round where when the president was signing, it is written there, work at 3 trillion ya kutoa. But maybe just to highlight to Kenyans the importance of these PPPs that we have with other countries.
You know, I am not a proponent of the endless negativity we propose in this country as a way of living life. Number one, PPPs are very notoriously difficult to corrupt because the people proposing the PPPs have assets to protect, because remember, it is both public and private partnership. So it is not something that you would think that the people in France who are going to invest in a road will be very quickly interested in trying to be corrupt. That's number one. Number two, we need to understand that PPPs are a sure sign of the strength of the Kenyan economy as viewed from outside the country. The reason being is that these people are willing to put in billions of their own shillings, in fact trillions in this particular case, and just invest in the country and recoup that money over a period of time. That simply states that this is someone willing to bank on us as Kenyans, and therefore we should then relook at ourselves and wonder, if people can invest in us, why do we feel as though our country is largely negative? So this is a very good sign for the country. And number two, this, for those who keep fighting that the government should not take any more loans in order to build the infrastructure that they keep insisting the government should build, this is a very good model for the country, because what it does is it allows us to spread the repayment of this thing over 25 years. It is paid back in terms of use. It's not just paid back as a loan from government. It's paid back by every motorist and every transport vehicle that's passing through there, and therefore the government does not need to change or alter its budget to meet its need. So this is a show of confidence in the Kenyan economy. It is good for us. And number two, we need to be very aware that not everything is corrupt, because if everything was corrupt in this country, we'd be a banana republic. In fact, even this internet I'm using now would not be working. You know, sometimes I wish I could take Kenyans with me to Zimbabwe in 2003 and 4 when that economy was collapsing, so they would understand what a collapsing economy is.
Although the thing is, Bichachi, we make a mistake if we compare ourselves with the worst. We should be comparing ourselves with the best. So based on comparison with the best, we still have a very long way to go. But allow me to bring in Gloria.
The best in Africa, let me put it in perspective. In sub-Saharan Africa, the Kenyan economy is number 3, only beaten by Nigeria, which is an oil giant, and South Africa, which is a gold, diamond.
That does not make it the best economy that it should be. The minute we take that attitude, you're going to relax and be comfortable thinking.
We are in Africa. Let's not pretend we're in Europe.
But why can't we be the first Africans to be different? Anyway, Gloria, PPEs and the importance for PPEs in our country. Of course, we are in a society and an environment where there's been a lot of corruption. So even those good activities that would be done by the government sometimes are viewed with a lot of suspicion.
As I've said before, and I'll keep repeating, that it is every Kenyan's civic responsibility to question any initiative that the government is taking, to understand it, and then to decide on where their position is. There's a narrative that Bichachi has tried to put here that public-private partnerships, the chances of them being corrupt are very minimal because everybody has their stake involved. And I want to remind him about the big scandal we have on managed equipment services in the health sector. That was a public-private partnership. And we have seen that based on the report that came out of the Senate, we've seen exactly how the corrupt dealings were, all the way from when they decided on how to procure that tender, down to which companies that they are going to award these tenders. And the 5 companies that were there, we've even tried to follow where that money went. Some of them even came back to donate to certain initiatives just to make sure that they are making good with government. So to say that public-private partnerships have got very minimal chances of being corrupt, that is, it's just wrong, because we have a case study there, and the case study should be that, in fact, that is the highest loophole of encouraging a certain few within government to be corrupt. So my point here is we are not being negative. We are simply criticizing government on certain initiatives, because that money that government is spending on those initiatives, whether it is borrowed or whether it is straight from the treasury, we still have to pay for it.
It's our money.
So
okay.
Just allow me also to say, when I saw that the partnership that our president went to sign in was on infrastructure and roads and railways and that, I asked myself, just last week I was thinking, we need to stay focused on the Big Four agenda, which is his agenda, which is centered around food security, health, manufacturing. And then you see him on the very last minute, as if he has not been in government for this long, going to sign partnerships that are not necessarily focused 100% on his legacy. That is the Big Four agenda. So for me, this is the confusion I've been talking about.
All right.
You take us on one direction, and then the next day we are signing things on railways. The next day we come back, we are talking about.
In the interest of time, let me bring in Makodingo. Makodingo, your thoughts on the PPEs and whether the president is somewhat confused or leading us in the right direction.
Let me quote for you a section of the Act, the PPP Act, so that then we have a basis.
We have context.
Section 21 of the PPP Act says that amongst many other things to be considered when a contracting authority is entering a PPP agreement is the economic and financial viability of the project and the economic life of the facilities. But more importantly, in 26, it says, amongst others, that the private partner entering this must have sufficient experience in a particular project and have the financial ability to actually do it. I mean, the truth is, we probably need another 50, 60,000 kilometers of tarmac. Anyone who has used the Nakuru route, I use it quite frequently because my village is towards those ends, knows the road is too narrow. That and we all know that there have been numerous accidents on that road. So of course, it's a government priority. It's a top priority in terms of development, in terms of volume. We don't have the money to do it. As it is now, already our budget is squeezed. We don't have money to do it. If there is someone out there who believes that the project is viable, that it can be done, I would do all the roads in this country using PPP because it's concessional. It's a build, operate, and transfer. So they'll build the road. All we provide is usually the land and access to that land. And the French will operate the damn thing for 25 years, recover their money, and leave for us our road. What is the problem with that? The most the government is doing is provide the land and provide a guarantee. But since the entity doing it is financially viable, I mean, do it. Build the road. If
build the
they
road
say they're going to build the road in my village.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Do the infrastructure. I mean.
Yeah. All right, Makodingo, it's now 7:30. I want us to take a short break, then we come back and review the week, and I can see your comments are coming in. I'll just read a few of them. It is wrong for Makodingo to say that the deputy president missed the COVID conference to distribute wheelbarrows. I had Musalia Mudavadi saying the same thing. For the record, he spent the entire day in Karen with absolutely no activity. The more reason, I guess, he should have been there